Hey there, thoughtful listener. This is Josh Elledge, CEO of UpMyInfluence.com. I'm so excited to announce our new Thoughtful Entrepreneur high-ticket sales coaching program, which you can try absolutely free. No credit card needed. Head to UpMyInfluence.com/free. We're also actively seeking guests for our daily commercial-free entrepreneurial inspiration podcast, the one you're listening to. If you know someone who is doing 6 to 8 figures in business, send them our way. Just go to upmyinfluence.com/guest. Now let's get on with the show. With us right now, Mark Delfini. Mark, you are the landlord coach. You are found on the web at landlordcoach.com. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. We got to, we're kind of from the same kind of part of the country. We got to talk, and you're from northern Indiana, or kind of Indiana,
central-ish, yeah.
And I lived in Indianapolis for a year, and originally from West Michigan. So kind of fun chatting. But yeah, Mark, thank you so much for joining in.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Josh. Thanks for the conversation. I think we could have done that for another 20 minutes and not realized it.
I think so. People are always like, man, you should have recorded that. That was like probably the good stuff. No. All right, Mark, tell me what you do as the landlord coach.
Well, basically, I try to help keep self-managing landlords from committing felonies. That's probably the best. I say that somewhat tongue in cheek, but they get so frustrated with what they're doing in the operations of their business, right? They get so frustrated thinking that that's the normal landlord game, and realistically, they're making it tough on themselves because they don't have systems and processes in place. So while I say that somewhat kiddingly, I also say that not kidding, because there's people out there who get very, very frustrated with their customers, who are their residents. And it's really because they're treating their business like a side hustle, not like a business.
Yeah. All right. So why is it that? So let's go through some of the. I don't know if you've got like a top 3 to 5 list or whatever it is of like the biggest dumb things that landlords do that we need to stop them from doing this bad stuff, and certainly the illegal stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, well,
I got to tell you, as a tenant, like I've been in situations, and I was like, I don't think you can ask that. Like people asking what church I went to and stuff, and I'm like, it was in Holland, Michigan, where it's kind of it's a very predominantly Reformed Christian church. And it's kind of a joke that's the question everybody asks you. But when the landlord asks, I'm like,
pretty sure you can't do that. Yeah.
If I say something weird and you deny me for being a tenant, was it because you didn't like the church I was going, or did not go to church?
And why would you open yourself up to that liability? And that's the thing. So when I hear the top 3 or 5 things that landlords are doing wrong, what I'm reading that is, what are the top 3 or 5 things that I've done wrong? Because I've done them all. I've literally made every mistake out there. And this is not, if it's sounding judgmental, it's not meant to. It's more of confession than judgment, because I have literally made all these mistakes out there. And if anybody's out there thinking, oh man, he's got it all figured out, well, it's because I literally made very, very, very expensive mistakes for the last 20 plus years of doing this. So one of the major mistakes that I see all the time is that where the individual landlord, individual rental housing provider is creating a bunch of little jobs for themselves, right? Now, you can put that any number of ways that you want, but fundamentally, they're not valuing their time. And little things. I watch videos on occasion of other people who are putting some stuff out there, and some of their content's quite good. But there was one guy who was putting content out there saying, never buy more properties than you can drive around and collect rent in one day. And I thought, my gosh, what a monumental, terrible advice. Like, that is monumental, bad advice, because you should not be going out there. Your residents should not be training you to go out and drive to their properties and knock on doors and beg for your rent. The gas company doesn't do that. The credit card company doesn't do that. Why are you doing that with your residents? Why are your residents have you trained to do that sort of stuff? So going out and banging on doors and collecting rent, that is absolutely not what you should be doing. That's one of the mistakes that I see. But also, like I mentioned earlier, is, not valuing your own time, where you will, well, I'll just go ahead and clean and paint that myself to save the money, right? Where you're thinking, okay, hang on a second. A cleaner and painter in most markets, again, we'll take New York and California out of this for this equation for just a second, but in most markets, you're going to be paying a cleaner somewhere between, $15 to $20 an hour. You are never going to make it big paying yourself $15 or $20 an hour. So you paying yourself that $15, $20 an hour, that's exactly, when you're doing work that you could pay someone else to do $15 an hour, that's exactly what you're paying yourself. So that getting out of that mindset of doing that minimum wage activity or, low pay activity, I hope you didn't get into the real estate business to create a $15 job, a $15 an hour job for yourself. And that's unfortunately what a lot of people have done. So those are some two critical things right away that I see people do. And that was the trap that I got into, that I had to extract myself from if I was ever going to make some serious money in this business.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it's really interesting, I think of when I think of a real estate investor, it seems like landlording seems to be lower on the totem pole. When I think about all the real estate investors I've talked to and the stuff that they're always talking about,
right?
The operations that you either outsource it completely, right? Or it seems like it's kind of a distant secondary thing that they kind of think about or worry about.
Right. Right.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah. And that's where I think where, and I'm not sure if I'm answering your question right, but what I see where people struggle, and this is exactly where I struggled, and where I say that you're not valuing your time, it's because you're treating it like a side hustle. So if you're going to treat it like a side hustle, it's always going to be where your residents can connect with you. They can call you on your cell phone at 2:00 in the morning with all the problems that they have, and waste your time, and all those things. You're not setting up boundaries for yourself. Just like if you have, Josh, if you have a favorite restaurant that you like to go to, you and your, significant other like to go to, and you're there at this, at this restaurant, do you know the name of the person who owns the restaurant? Do you know their cell phone number? Do you know where they live? Do you know where they live? Right? Well, of course. I mean, for most people, no. The answer is no. And I have a favorite restaurant. I don't know their phone number. I wouldn't even know how to get a hold of them. Yeah. But my point is because they've set up boundaries, and those boundaries are what the business are what you need to run that like a business. That's exactly the difference between a side hustle and a business.
Yeah, let's talk about maybe some of those boundaries that you see are often crossed. Because I've been also, again, in history, I've been as a tenant, where I've had their personal cell phone number, and I'm, I'm calling them, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, they probably don't like this. I remember thinking that, but I'm like, okay, they gave it. They said to call them. Okay, I'm going to call them, or things about payment too, where, just because we were at a different point in our career,
right.
There were unfortunate situations where, thankfully they were willing to work with me, but I'm going back now in hindsight, I'm like, man, I'd hate to be that, in that situation. It happens, but that would be an area, I'm sure, for anything having to do with money, you want to have some serious, this is how it's structured.
Yeah, you have to have some protocols in place, and when you're, and it's so difficult to not get emotionally involved. And that's why I said at the start, keep people from committing felonies, because you get so fired up. It's almost really hard to not take that personally when someone is calling you and calling you a slumlord and all these different things. And meanwhile, you're trying to just keep the mortgage paid. And you're putting it, you're putting your hard-earned money to buy new refrigerators and buy new appliances and, keep the place maintained, only to get it handed back to you in pieces. I understand that frustration. When I wrote the Time Wealthy Investor 2.0, The boundaries that I have people put in place is what I reference to the VIP method, the vision infrastructure process method. We'll go through that real fast. But the vision is really, it has nothing to do specifically at all with your business. It has nothing to do with income generation at all. The vision is really what you want to accomplish. And many times when I'm talking to people who, want to get into the rental business, they always say, well, I want to get 100 rental properties, or it's always in multiples of 25. I have no idea why, but I want 50 rental properties. I want 100 rental properties, yeah. which tells me that they have not thought this through in terms of, okay, you really want 100 because 97 wouldn't do it for you. 93 wouldn't do it for you. 84, right? So I'll keep going down until they realize that what they've done is they confuse the number of rental units with the life output they think that that's going to buy them, right? Yeah. So if your vision at a very basic level, which has nothing to do with income generation, vision is what you want in your life. It's related to your purpose as to why you're here, which I promise you has nothing to do with rental properties. So if your vision would take, $12,507 per month to deliver your basic vision, where you get to lay on the beach for 2 months out of the year rubbing cocoa butter on your belly, right? Good vision, right? Maybe not a great visual, but a good vision, right? So it's a good vision for your life. So there you are laying on the beach rubbing cocoa butter on your belly. Well, when you build an infrastructure that's in alignment with that vision, you're not going to want to put an infrastructure in place that's going to require you to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, for example. Because if your vision is to lay on the beach rubbing cocoa butter in your belly, that's going to be a terrible experience for you. Well, hey, let me go answer the phone real fast. Let me go return this email, right? It's going to interrupt your vision. So you have to create an infrastructure that's in alignment with that vision. Now, infrastructure, what I'm talking about is the desks, the chairs, the software, the computer systems, all that stuff, right? But it's also the asset class selection. What asset class do you want to, whether it's single family dwellings or multifamily or mixed use or parking garages or whatever, right? So that's the infrastructure portion. And then the last portion of the VIP methods, you've got the vision, you've got the infrastructure. The process is simply how you do stuff. The process is simply the protocols and procedures in terms of how stuff gets done that runs on the infrastructure that you built, that all stays in alignment with your vision for the future.
Yeah. Mark, how did you tell me again a little bit more about your origin story and how you decided that you were going to go from, okay, I made all the mistakes. I should probably go out and help some other people with this.
Well, I would love to say that I bought my first rental property, went straight to the Ferrari dealership, bought my first Ferrari, and that's exactly how it happened, right? That is exactly not how it happened. I bought my first rental property and then proceeded to make literally every possible mistake a person could make. And because I did that, and because I paid too much for properties and I didn't allow properties to cash flow well enough, I thought, well, if they cash flowed $100 a month over the mortgage, I must be making money, right? Wrong. I wasn't calculating CapEx properly, capital expenditure, vacancy expense, all the things that I messed up. But realistically, when I had pieced together this hodgepodge creative financing monster that got me into 92 rental properties, right? And so I had 92 units by myself, running it all, doing it all myself, the leasing, the showing, opening the mail, answering the phone, filing for evictions, doing collections, doing the maintenance. It was everything. It was a horrible job that no one in the world would have signed up for. Well, I was so over leveraged, not just financially, but I was over leveraged in time. And I was so time weary, which is why I wrote The Time Wealthy Investor. I want people to be time wealthy. I want people to have control over their calendar. That's why where that came from. But unfortunately, I had to go through the really bad times where I really lost. I had $6 million worth of real estate and lost $4.5 million of it in about 8 months. During that time is when I also landed in the hospital with double pneumonia because I almost literally worked myself to death. So it was during that time where all these things were swarming around in my head that I recognized that, okay, there's some, where are all these problems? Where can I put these problems in what buckets? And it really did land in, well, all the processes and procedures were in my head. So I had no processes. Even if I did have processes, I didn't have anything for them to run on. So that was where the infrastructure bucket came from. And finally over here, I was like, well, why am I doing this all in the first place? I really had no vision for what I was trying to accomplish in the first place. So that's where the vision infrastructure process paradigm or method came from.
Yeah. Mark, take me through how you work with landlords or prospective landlords. Like, how do you help them? What are your systems? What do you provide coaching? Do you provide training systems? Like, how do you help folks?
Yeah, it's been an evolution for sure. I do one-to-one coaching for a lot of people who really have this, the same problems that I had. And it's, they're time weary. They're missing too many baseball games. They're missing too many life events. There's too many, you're married. It seems like, it's like there's too many fights that are not happening. Mm-hmm. And I say that in a very serious way, because my wife and I, my bride and I, we've struggled for a while. And if I did not have time wealth, if I did not have the control over my calendar where we needed to sit down and have those necessary, fights and necessary arguments, not bitter, not venomous, but just, handling the stress of a marriage, that's how there's too many divorces that are happening. And that's why really I feel so strongly about this, because I really help people recognize that it's not just about the stuff. Yeah, we all want cool stuff, but we really only fundamentally need the ability to control our calendars, and we can do whatever we want after that. But when we can control our calendars, we can control a lot of things. Yes, it takes cash flow to do that. But I do that through one-to-one coaching. Many times it's pointing out self-sabotaging behaviors that they don't even recognize that they're doing, limiting beliefs that are just obvious to me because I know what I'm looking for now, but they were not so obvious to them, and certainly weren't obvious to me when I had my own limiting beliefs. It's the goldfish bowl, the goldfish living inside the goldfish bowl that doesn't know any different, because that's the whole world that they've ever known. So that's how I help them with one-to-one coaching. I also have a mastermind that I wrap into the same folks that are in that same community. So they all get to help one another and also get coaching from me.
Yeah. And so your website is landlordcoach.com. When somebody goes there, what would you recommend in terms of like, they like you, they've enjoyed hearing you on this podcast. They, would love to kind of, take that next step. Where would you recommend they go, and what should they do?
They can always drop me a line at mark@landlordcoach.com. I give everybody a free 90-minute session. It's not a sales session. I do not like being hard sold on anything. So I am not about to do that to someone else. It drives me bananas.
Introduce me to the person who does, by the way.
It's the worst.
Love being sold to. Give me another timeshare presentation, please.
Exactly. I don't care. There's no steak dinner worth that. No. But if they go to landlordcoach.com, they can get a copy of the book, unless they want to spend a lot more money and send it to Jeff Bezos on Amazon. But they can get a copy of my book there for just a few dollars. Or if they want to, if they actually are interested in coaching, there's a form that they can fill out and do that. But just drop me a line at mark@landlordcoach.com, and we can do a coaching session and see if there's a fit there.
Yeah. All right. So again, Mark Dolfini, you are the Landlord Coach. You're found on the web at landlordcoach.com. And when you go there, you actually have a button that says free stuff. That's a great place to start. You got a great YouTube channel, got lots of great stuff there. Mark Dolfini, thank you so much for joining us.
Josh, it was a pleasure. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to the Thoughtful Entrepreneur Show. If you are a thoughtful business owner or professional who would like to be on this daily program, we have an audience of over 120,000 that we would love to promote your story to. Please visit upmyinfluence.com/guest. I'm also so excited to announce our new Thoughtful Entrepreneur high-ticket sales coaching program, which you can try absolutely free. No credit card needed. Head to upmyinfluence.com/free. If you got something out of this interview, would you share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you do that, tag us with the hashtag #UpMyInfluence. Each month, we scour Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. We pick one winner from each platform, and you get crowned king or queen of that social media. What do you win? Well, we will promote you and retweet you and reshare you and your business to over 120,000 social media fans, totally free. Can you also hook us up in your podcast player right now? please give us a thumbs up or a rating and review, and we promise to read it all and take action. Thank you if you've done this already. We believe that every person has a message that can positively impact the world. Your feedback helps us fulfill that mission. And while you're at it, please hit that subscribe button. You know why? Tomorrow, that's right, 7 days a week, you are going to be inspired and motivated to succeed. 15 to 20 minutes a day. My name's Josh Elledge. Let's connect on the socials. You'll find all the stuff we're doing at upmyinfluence.com. Thanks for listening, and thank you for being a part of the Thoughtful Entrepreneur Movement.